of silence. That's not silence.
That's not silence. She beats the shit out of the keyboard. Here.
Sorry.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 411. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Baines. Hi, Baines. Spawns. Hi,
Hello.
Baines.
Hello.
Hello. There's Tanserine. Hi, Tans.
Hello.
And there's Pitface. Hi, Pitsy.
Hey, baby.
That deep, manly voices, of course.
I wasn't even trying to do a deep, manly voice. I literally just spoke. Thank you, Oz, for giving me a complex now.
Oh, it's a compliment. You got a great voice.
Why, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about copyrighted work in comics and how you deal with that, all the different aspects, copyright-free work, using copyrighted work like fan art, or just whatever. But before we get into that, let's talk about the featured comic. So the featured comic this week was The Vagabonds, Waifs, and Strays. So, here you go with that. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and the comic I featured this week was Vagabonds, Waifs, and Strays. This is the fascinating and harrowing tale of a person discarded by society, used up, pushed to the side, and forced through the cracks. You are shown life from his unique perspective and taken into his dark world, increasingly farther on the fringes of everyday life, and yet he still hangs on and keeps trying to stay existing within the uncaring machine that is modern America. A well-written, well-drawn, text-heavy biographical story. Here is a sample of one of the bright nuggets. Youth is stifled by its effulgent ego and lack of wisdom, while age is imprisoned by sloth and parsimony. Each wants what the other has, yet each hates the other with a passion. So it's an interesting comic. Yeah, the tone is a bit down, but it's welcome because it's told so well. The art is really, really nice, though, as I say, it's very text heavy. So the art illustrates the story rather than a traditional comic. And it's worth reading because it drags you into this terrible situation that this character has found himself, and you keep thinking, so when does he rise above this, or how does he manage to rise above this? Does he keep on going lower, or what happens? So it's a fascinating story, and it's really done from his perspective. So it's not objective reality, it's reality from the character's perspective as he sees it. Because, he has been discarded, and maybe he's been discarded because of his attitude. Maybe that has something to do with it, or maybe that has given him that attitude, and that's how he is now. So yes, I recommend it. There's not that many pages, so it's very easy to go through. So have a look at Vagabonds, Waifs, and Strays. The artist is Artisto Escondido, and it's rated E. And that was the feature, The Vagabonds, Waifs, and Strays. So after the feature, we have the featured music. Gun Wallace has given us the theme to The Cherub Brothers. This is a comic by Magel.
Oh, yay!
Oh, you like that one?
Me too.
Huh. By Magel.
From what I remember.
And it's rated T, for teen. So, The Cherub Brothers. A welcoming, friendly sound draws us in, and warm, heavy distortion burns over the top like gently glowing plasma, roasting us to perfection. Serve with mint sauce. This one is tasty. Take it away, Gun Wallace, with The Cherub Brothers. And that was the featured music. Thank you for that, Gumwallace. The Cherub Brothers by Magor, rated T. Right.
Yay.
Copyrighted work. So, you guys tell me, what was your first bit of copyrighted work that you did?
I used to sing Happy Birthday. We would always have to pay. And I'm really happy now that we don't have to pay every time we sing that song. That's really eased up on all of us. Everyone agrees with that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. It's been a millstone around my neck since I was born. Yep. Every year.
Exactly.
So
I've never really used any. I've never posted anything with copyright stuff.
Oh, wow.
But,
You missed the special then.
I'm an old man. In my day, we didn't have the internet. So I didn't.
I've done a few. One of my early ones I did was I did a copy of the drawing by David Rowe. I think he did a cover of Dragon Song or Dragon Singer, Sam McCaffrey book, Corgi edition. And I really liked it so much that I did a drawing of it and I posted it online. And of course I said, I attributed it to that. But, you get popularity from copyrighted work. My version was almost exactly the same as the real, just as the original. I just freehand copied it and, colored it in my own way. It was a lot of work to do, but of course it was obviously, based on that work. So that's using copyrighted work. So that was one of my things I did. Another one was there's an excellent panel in Masamune Shirow's Ghost in the Shell of one of the robot nurses fixing up, I think, Motoko's body, or, having a look at some kind of robot body. And it just looks so sexy and cool, and I did a painting of it and gave it to a friend as a birthday present. But I also, put it up online. Oh, I've done a few more. I did a copy of Rocco's Modern Life. I put the characters in a painting. Rocco and Heifer, two favorite characters in that. And I did that as a painting. So I've used copyrighted work. I grew out of that when I realized that, you get a lot of acclaim for it because people know the characters, or even if they don't, they can look really good because you're basing it on something that is already very crystallized and is already good looking. So they've already done the work. But you can't do anything with it. You can't sell it. You can't use it in anything else. You can't, make posters out of it or incorporate it into other artwork because it's copyright. Someone else really owns it. So you're wasting that work in a way.
I've recently, wasting it in means of profit, perhaps, but
Yeah.
I, for one, have started doing more fan art of like popular titles and stuff like that because I want to be seen a little bit more. I'm kind of testing the waters to see if it does send any more people my way and stuff like that. But I'm copywriting. I'm drawing things that I still enjoy, right? So like old video game art for video games I used to play or that kind of thing. It's been a lot more fun than I realized it was going to be. But yeah, like I can't ever sell those things, but it may pay off in, pay off in exposure that shitty people do. But, yeah, but we'll see. Well, I'm curious. It's almost kind of like an experiment right now. Like, I wonder. It all depends on how you get it out there, like the platforms you use as well, or how you expose it to people and stuff. But
that is a positive, and that does work. I remember School Monkey used to get a heap of notice from the fan stuff she would do. She'd be really into things like video games, like what's that one where everybody gets killed in a nuclear explosion and people come out of vaults, and Fallout. Okay, so she was really into Fallout, so she'd do a lot of stuff based on that. And she'd do heaps of fan art based on Mass Effect. You know, like Garrus was her favorite character. She do like a comic based on that. She just automatically pick up hundreds and thousands of like viewers and followers, and that wasn't her purpose. She wasn't doing that to do that. She was just into it. But she couldn't use that. Like, she couldn't monetize that or whatever. But it would build up the fame and the popularity, which is an end in itself. You know, like you say, it gets you more views, it gets you out there, it gets you seen, and then they want to check out your other stuff. So,
and for the people who own these titles, it's in their best interest as well if they continue to let these things go on. Not only because it's a pain in the ass to fight them all, but also it's getting the title more exposure, and making it more of a cultural entity.
Yeah, because the fans will sort of almost repackage it to be more palatable or to be more directed towards these specific groups, like specific age groups or specific interest groups, which your marketing agency can't do. They just don't have the ability to market it to all these different groups, whereas the fans can. And it helps spread your fame, you know, like you're saying. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So
it's fan goodwill also to let these. There's been some pretty big stories recently with Star Trek and Star Wars. I don't know as much about the Star Trek Axanar legal thing where the fan production Axanar was shut down, and there's legal stuff going on with that. But another one was a Star Wars fan film that a guy made for like $100,000. He got clearances. Well, it's love. It's a labor of love, you know. And he got he has a pretty big, very big YouTube channel, I think, Star Wars Theory, and he made this movie, and he got clearances first from Lucasfilm, who said he wasn't allowed to crowdfund, and he wasn't allowed to make money off of it, basically, but go ahead and do it. So, I mean, amazingly, he managed to get it done. And then it's a little unclear if it was Lucasfilm or another company that owns some music rights, got him or gave him a YouTube strike or something. And they were allowed to advertise on his video, and they were allowed to make money off of his video. And the fan community went insane with rage, and it was reversed. So he's still not making money, but there's no advertising on it anymore. And they released him, they released the claim on it or whatever. It was pretty interesting and bad fan relations, to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, fan following and fan love is a very tricky thing for these properties, and it's an interesting relationship because a lot of famous sci-fi authors and writers, actors, and things like that started out as rabid sci-fi fans and people who do fan fiction and people who do all that kind of stuff. They came out of that world. A lot of the people who really loved the original Star Trek went on to become writers of Star Trek Next Generation and things like that. And that's happened all throughout that world. Yeah, that community produces those creators. So it's good to have a good relationship with them. But yeah, the downside, of course, is like if you're spending over $100,000 on a movie and it's a labor of love, and it's a fan movie, there's not much you can do with that movie, though, is there? You can't make money.
No, I mean he knew from the get-go that he wasn't allowed to make money off of it or anything like that. So it's a pretty amazing thing. I mean, I can't imagine doing that personally.
It's
but
awesome.
it was good though. It was pretty. It was quite good.
I suppose you will get a massive ton of exposure because it is a property that's already made, so you're piggybacking off of that.
Right.
So you're going to get
I mean,
that exposure.
True.
It can forward your career in a lot of ways. Then, so everybody can see it. Then you can use that like as a show reel, whatever, to get jobs in the entertainment industry somehow. You know, maybe writing, maybe the costuming people, the actors, of course, lighters,
some kind of production design thing, or totally,
all that kind of stuff.
Have a bigger audience, to create your own original film or something like that, because you'll have this sort of fan base, which I think he has a huge. I don't really watch the channel, but I think he has a huge fan base on YouTube already with his commentary, Star Wars commentary channel. So
it's a lot easier for him to get
there are
funding
upsides
from producers or
for sure,
all that kind of stuff, because they know he can produce a film. He can produce a film to a budget, and all that kind of stuff. So there are upsides to working in fan art, and it's not all. Yeah, it's an interesting give and take. It really is.
And there is also that, we are mostly talking about people that are more or less already professionals, but people that are just easing themselves into art in a very big way, they can use fan art to learn, because fan art provides you with a pre-made framework, let's say, so you can focus on the thing you want while everything else is pre-made, and you can practice. And I remember when I was dabbling into writing, when I was not very young, but young, I would almost always write fan art, fan fiction. I didn't know it was called that then. But what I would do, especially like when I was a kid, I remember that I was reading some short stories and stuff by super acclaimed authors in Greece, and of course they were trying to relay a particular social message or something specific, like they were running social commentary with their stories, and they are amazing stories in and of themselves. But I hated the ending, because mostly the endings were bad to drive the point home. And I was too young to be able to suffer that. So what I would do was that I would pick the story up from a point in the short story where the plot was still quote unquote salvageable, and I would just write a different ending. And for me, that would be my ending. It wouldn't be the black one. It would be a better one. And that was basically my first steps into writing in the first place. And I must have been around 9 or 10 years old when I started doing it. Yeah, because I was telling myself, I won't just write it. Like, no, they didn't die, they just lived, period. I wanted to make it so that it would be a possible, justified outcome. So I had to sit down and think about different things and how things, characters could have reacted and why. And I had to build the whole thing. So it was basically just another short story tacked on to the original one. Unfathomably worse, but it was a short story. And that was my beginning. And then I would just take characters and their settings, like Indiana Jones, I remember. I would write, and MacGyver, I really liked that. And I would just write my own plots set in the setting of their worlds. I didn't have to do any world building. I didn't have to think about certain things. They were already there for me, and I could just learn about how to write a character and keep the character consistent without realizing I was even doing that. I just wanted to write the fan art, the fan fiction. So that was basically the way I started being even remotely interested in in learning about principles of writing, because I wanted to make myself better than the author. Yeah, I was considered back then. So, yeah, fan art is a great training ground for anything and everything. And I remember that the last fan art that I made was the one that gave me the confidence to try to publish my stuff, because and it was a Harry Potter fan art. I was using it to be able to differentiate my characters from the characters of Rowling. Remember, I have told you about my problem and having to rewrite an entire book because it was too similar. So when I had finished, I wanted, not finished, but almost going to finish, I wanted to just write one last fan fiction of Harry Potter to just feel certain in myself that my characters were different to those, because I would need to write them differently and consistent to the rules that she had set up. And that particular fan fiction won an award.
Wow!
Yeah, out of the blue. I never entered it. Someone else entered it, like a reader entered the damn thing, because I was always too shy to enter into contests. And I thought to myself, okay, if people are so happy with this and they find it that it could have actually been part of canon, being, written by me, then maybe I can publish my own stuff. And that's how I actually went into publish.
Yeah, got the confidence to do it. Wow.
Yeah, it helps. So.
Well, that's a pretty amazing little story there. I was going to say that you're right that fan art is a great teaching tool because, of course, one of the ways the famous classical artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, whatever, and all the legions of others learned was, of course, by copying the previous masters to them in the museums, or not that they had museums, but they copied the great works of the earlier masters to try and learn their techniques. And yeah, that was one of the ways they learned. So yeah, that is an established teaching tool. And of course, tribal cultures, the Maoris, people like that, you'll notice they have a lot of traditional art that's there. The beautiful carvings on wood or beautiful tattoos and stuff like that. That's taught by copying the artwork of the previous masters and the previous generations. So you imitate the style, and then you learn how to do it through that. So there definitely is a lot behind doing basic fan art, really.
And there's more to this topic also than fan art, of course, in way of, using copyright written material. There are ways that perhaps you use things like that to build, or not build, but to kind of incorporate into your world. Like, in Putrid Meat, I used, some logos from some thrash bands and stuff like that, or at least similar things at times, and those were kind of just part of the product of that world. Okay. And so a lot of times you'll see a cartoon or something like that, or a TV show, and somebody will pick up a Coke and drink it or something like that. We'll have to face outward brand recognition. That usually also comes from people who are sponsored by certain things, but more what will likely be more likely to happen for people like us is we might use like certain brands or logos or something like that, or alternate versions of them if you really want to avoid that copyright strike or infringement in the artwork in that way, without necessarily trying to get into like a fan community or something like that.
Yeah,
if any of that made sense.
Yeah.
That's another tricky world, because there is fair use, which constitutes commenting on
reviews and stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
The review comics and stuff like that.
There's
But
parody as well, and cultural comments. So you're allowed to have a certain percentage of copyrighted work in your work for that. So, not doing a review, but actually, doing some kind of meta commentary or when it applies to that work, rather than just stealing some music for your background music, So
yeah, my brother actually worked on a comedy show that had a lot of music in it. In one episode in particular, he used the music of an artist, some well-known stuff, and I was surprised they were able to do it. I asked him what did it cost? How hard was it to get these, these rights to all these songs and everything? And he's like, it was free. They're allowed under, I guess in Canada anyway, under parody sort of legislation or a parody subsection, they were allowed to use all this stuff for free. That fell under fair use, which shocked me.
Wow, you need a good lawyer.
I guess. I mean, I don't know the specific ins and outs of how to do that, but apparently.
Because it depends on the brand. Like Apple, you'll notice that a lot of people who do things, creative stuff, and they have an Apple computer, there'll always be a sticker over the Apple. Always like on the logo on the computer. Not all the time, but in like a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that, people will have stickers. And I don't know, that's because of branding issues and things like that.
Yeah.
With litigious companies.
And you'll see people on people on reality shows and stuff with like t-shirts that are blurred out and everything. Like, because they're not allowed to show those logos, whatever those logos are.
Well, yeah, and that's not a copyright issue so much. That can be like like sponsors and all this. People pay to advertise on shows. If you're walking around a band T-shirt, they're getting free advertising. They didn't pay, so that's going to make the people who did pay. That's going to make them angry.
Oh, I see.
So, that's why they have to do that. Because
and sometimes it's a permission thing, right? Because you'll remember, like, I almost
that's true.
Remember? But no, you see it all the remember. You'll see it all the time where people are Googling something on a show or something. They're using like some search engine that doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, Flugel.
Like Spider. Like Flugel or Spider Crawler. What did you use on Dexter? Like Spider Crawler or something.
It's so lame when they do that.
Yeah, and it's like, wow. That's always weird to me that Google wouldn't give permission to use their name.
Yeah. Or like a Moogle I have seen. I don't remember where.
Yeah, now you see parody things, exactly. Like it'll look like the Google logo.
Or NNN.
I think every single time they do a news service in something, they always do some weird version, TNN or DNN. Yeah.
Oh, right.
They can't be CNN. It has to be something else. You can't do it. I don't know whether it's a copyright thing. It probably is a copyright thing in that instance. Yeah, that's interesting. Have you guys ever run into, like, Pit Base is saying, like, she got thrash bands in her thing she uses? Chance, your comics are set in the 1940s and 30s, so I suppose you don't really care about the
most of the brands that I would use, and I haven't had the need yet.
Yeah.
But there may be, but most of those are like out of business or have been for a few decades, so nobody cares, I think. So yeah.
I don't know, Coke's still around. They were.
Yeah, but at the time we didn't actually have Coke. in Greece. We had another Greek Coke thing that was called Tam Tam,
Okay.
and that was our Coke. So I can't actually use Coke unless I, go to some kind of American barracks or whatever
Yeah.
for some reason.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Baines, I imagine you would have that though, because you've got like your comic is set in the real world in the present day.
And a movie store. So I'm curious whether you've ever used actual titles of real movies that have come out, or do you tend to more make ones up?
The ones that are plot relevant that I've done so far, I did this in the animated series, and this poster features in the background of the video store. This movie, Alien Warrior Princess, this filmmaker who's made other movies. And this guy is going to be coming up in the comic when I start the next issue. That's a fake movie. Like, it's a whole, I made up this director, and like it's loosely based on some other B movies and stuff like that I've seen. But it's fake. It's my own thing. The characters have talked about movies and kind of slammed them here and there. And at the time I wondered, I wonder if this thing got popular, if I would get in trouble for that, or if I would get a call or a letter or something. But not enough people see it for that to be relevant. I did get the same kind of copyright strike that Star Wars dude got, funnily enough, just last week.
What?
On one of my early when I was learning how to animate years ago, I put these videos on YouTube and they're terrible, and they have like 6 views. But I still got a copyright strike because at the time I just threw on like David Bowie songs. Like, I was listening to David Bowie's greatest hits or whatever at the time. So for all those little videos, I just threw on a David Bowie song as the soundtrack. And I got a copyright strike on one of them. Like the letter said, don't worry, you're not in trouble, but someone's claimed ownership, so they can advertise on your video and they can make any money off of it, which would be zero anyway on these videos. But it did surprise me, kind of thing.
Wow.
And I just went and changed the music, just because it just annoyed me, kind of. So it's like,
yeah.
Automated now, that's why. Because the moment. Like when I uploaded the trailer for Without Moonlight, it has this for music. It has a metal cover of a very famous dance song, Greek dance song. So immediately, like in under 5 seconds, it got a copyright strike. So
wow.
Yeah. Again, the type of you're not in trouble, blah blah blah. Because I'm not making money off of it anyway. So
exactly. Yeah. If you were, then it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I expected it. I don't mind. I just want the music to be there because it is a very good fit for the thing. So
well,
I didn't mind, but it's automatic now.
Speaking of that, there's going to be there's new legislation, I think, going through the European Union Parliament about copyrighted material in especially things like YouTube videos, in that if there's any single item that is copyright, like the titles of books in the background, so the spines of books, a Lego figurine, the appearance of that, IKEA furniture, and anything that is recognizably, copyrighted thing, then you'll have all sorts of rights strikes against your work. You'll have to get permission from all these different things, just like films do.
Wow.
So individuals making videos of that include these kind of things will have to go through all those labyrinth and lawyering up, trying to get permission.
Yeah.
If they
same thing, movies and TV broadcasts have to do.
The whole Article 13 thing, and now the EU. That's the whole Article 13.
Article 13, okay.
And the EU is now trying to curb the outrage by saying we're not going to be this insane. this you will still have your memes and your assorted what's it called, uh, fair use stuff, but nobody is buying it because the EU generally. I mean, if you are a believer in the EU, you are just saying that it is a big behemoth of a structure that is run by people that don't know how the internet works, and it's going to be messy before it becomes better. And if you are like everybody else and you don't believe in the EU, you are just calling bullshit that they're still gonna do it. But we'll see. We'll see how that will work. VPN is going to be very popular in Europe.
Yeah, but I think even with the VPN, locally produced content is going to be stymied. There's a problem with that. I think a lot of it is unintended consequences, because if you have vague legislation, lawyers can just get in there and perforate it like a sieve and use all sorts of different angles that if you don't account for that, then you're buggered. And it seems to be that the EU is very, very prone to that poorly written legislation, because it's just too large and too far-reaching, too powerful. That's a term for that kind of thing, because it encompasses too many things. Yeah, that's a problem. Though we don't have that problem so much because we're not doing videos all the time with copyrighted material in the background, so we're lucky. And with our comics, us four, we primarily create our own content and don't include any other copyright stuff, do we?
I've once in a while actually used some photographic backgrounds, like pulled from offline, out of laziness, But like other times when I haven't wanted to draw backgrounds, I've gone out when I'm like out on the town, doing as I do. I've gone and just taken my own photos in whatever neighborhood kind of closely matched up, and then just use that instead. And it's kind of for that. It's like a preemptive thing. Like I'm like, man, if I ever do a print comic, if it's making a nickel, like who knows what might happen? Someone will come in like, hey, that's a stock photo of a restaurant or whatever.
It's possible.
Who knows? It's possible.
In one of the QUACKCASTs I did a while ago, I got a copyright strike from YouTube saying, we've picked up that you have this sound, this music, this song that belongs to this company, so they're going to start making money of your...
Oh, okay, so you got the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, and it was because one of the copyright-free samples that Gun Wallace uses to make his music, because a lot of his music is made from, mixing of a lot of samples, some it's original, some of it's some GarageBand stuff.
Right.
So a company did that themselves, using music from free samples to make a track. And YouTube automatically, attributed that to them. So that was their song. Even though, the music just contained, their music had the same sample as Gunwaltz's music. So I had to explain, I had to go to these people and write them, emails about, could you please, take this strike off? I've got an hour-long, audio spoken thing, and it contains a very short clip of this sampled music that was certainly copyright free, and you've happened to use the same copyright free music. Could you please take this thing? And they understood and they took it off, so it was resolved happily. But we fall afoul of these automatic bots that are governing everything, and we're forced to do that when we really shouldn't, because that was copyright-free music. So I should never have had to do that. There's a lot of fucking around and panicking and worrying for no reason.
Yeah, it's just extra effort, and you're busy and you're just one person. It's kind of like, oh, come on, man. I actually had it happen before years ago, and now I just remembered on another cartoon, like a full length thing. They didn't tell me why, like if it was music or audio, or they said someone has filed a copyright claim against this video. It was a comedy episode of Typical Strange they did on YouTube. And so I looked it up, and I got an address, a copyright at youtube.com thing or whatever at the time, and said, like, hey, these are actors I hired. I wrote the script. I did the music, and I used some Foley, like some sound effects that are, what's the phrase? Like they should be copyright free, like Creative Commons free, from freesound.org. And like everything here is either it should be copyright free or it's me, unless it's one of the actors. I'm like, do I have to get permission from actors now, voice actors or something? And anyway, I wrote that and said, like, this is pretty much all my own creation, all the visuals, all the sound. And I never found out who called the strike, but they just removed it.
Right, interesting.
So, yeah. That'll happen more and more, obviously. Is happening more and more as these bots get more sophisticated.
Yeah, well, I don't know if...
more sophisticated, also not quite sophisticated enough. Or something.
Yeah, that's the problem. They tend to be, like, more overarching, and they control more, but they're not very sophisticated. So they got more power than they used to have, but there's less human oversight. So they make a lot of mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. Alright, so that's that aspect of copyright stuff. What other... Oh, copyright free. How about using copyright free stuff? So we've talked about using copyright free samples, copyright free sound effects, copyright free background images, which is possible to use. Google search and looking for photos is not copyright free or Creative Commons. So that depends on the individual image. So you've got to go to the producer of that image and see if that is. So careful about doing that. You can steal a pose from a photo. That's fine because you're altering it enough to make it, I don't know the technical term, but you're altering it enough so it becomes your own property.
It's not actually, I think, this falls under the category of the non-copyrightable things. Like you can't copyright a position, a posture, or a pose. Just like you can't copyright common words in a vocabulary or things like that. So even if you lift, so to speak, a composition, like a composition maybe, but if you lift it and it's not like traced or it looks like you have just, put filters. So, sorry.
Bless you.
Thank you. If you have put filters on it or stuff like that, if it is something that you have created from scratch, even if the positioning of the characters is identical, they cannot actually copyright it.
Okay. Yeah, there's that. So if it's just a pose, that's another thing. You can't copyright clothing outfits or clothing styles. So if your character's wearing a very specifically characteristic, Christian Dior, I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, if they're wearing a Chanel dress, that's fine because you cannot copyright clothing styles. So yeah, Google bots in the EU, you can't do anything about that. So, that's why the reason why those Chinese companies can do fake versions of fashion styles because you can't copyright clothing style designs. You can't copyright poses, but you can't just put a filter on a photo that someone else has done. What other copyright-free stuff? Oh yeah, well there are old comic characters that are coming out of copyright. A lot of really crappy characters actually, but they were made in the 1920s, 1930s. they're just coming out of copyright. You know, people that at the Superman's kind of vintage, Batman, Superman, and you can start using them yourself now, because one of the things is, I mean, it's not just the date of creation, whether you know, where copyright comes from. It's also, say, if people have continued to do work on that. So with Superman, that's been a continually produced property for all that time, for all those years and years and years, 80 years. And it's the same with Batman. People still working on it. So, you know, that the copyright on that is fresh, and, you know, that has value. Whereas there's a lot of comic characters and book characters and things from the 1920s, 1930s that were just isolated. They were dead end. They didn't continue on, you know, side characters, even in, you know, popular comics and stuff like that. They weren't produced again. So copyright on them has lapsed, which means now you are free to use them in your stuff. I don't think that you can then say, oh, I've done this extra work on this character, now I own the copyright. You can't do that. They probably still remain copyright free. So that's an interesting thing. So you could, like, get one of these copyright free characters and make a whole comic based around them, but you're not really producing work that you can say, yeah, no one else can do it, because everyone else can. It's like a comic based on Robin Hood. So anyone can do that. That's not going to be your thing. You can do your own spin on it, and it's going to be fantastic. But it doesn't stop Joe Blogs down the street from doing his own version.
Yeah. Ditto Frankenstein. Frankenstein is public domain.
Yeah.
Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, these other characters. The certain particulars, I think, my understanding is, like, certain particulars from the movies are trademarked.
All right, the bolts and the
Frankenstein. Yeah, there's, like, physical, like the Boris Karloff Frankenstein is, yeah, like, you can't, there are certain specific physical things you can't do,
right,
if you're doing a Frankenstein's monster story. But the stuff from the book is public domain.
Interesting.
Which is, yeah, kind of crazy, as is Dracula. Yeah, it seems like nuts that those are public domain, but they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Peter
Jekyll
Pan.
and Hyde, I think, are Peter Pan. Yeah.
Peter Pan wasn't for a long time. That was owned by a children's like hospital, I think, in the UK.
Okay.
So, and they made all their money from that because the rights were gifted to them. But now it's in the public domain, so they can no longer make any money off of that. That's a shame.
I think
go on,
I don't know about those particular ones, but I'm thinking about, like, titles like Mary Poppins. I think Disney has renewed, like, copyright on these things. I don't know the legalities of it and how it's done, but yes, on principle, but it's not always as automated, let's say. Like, for example, and that's creepy, but if I'm not mistaken, I think this year now, Mein Kampf is public domain. So you can, take that and do whatever you want with it.
wow.
But somehow I think that Bavaria, though, keeps getting revenue from it for some reason. So,
Bavaria?
Yeah. Bavaria was profiting of it until last year.
How weird. Okay. Oh, damn it. Well, that's interesting. My God, all these weird things are copyright free, and you can incorporate them into your own stuff. Disney is a fantastic example, because they made a lot of their money on films that were done on copyright-free stuff, so they didn't have to pay rights.
Mm-hmm.
Cinderella, of
right?
Course,
yeah.
Mickey Mouse is their big thing, which is actually going to come out of copyright very soon. And people are saying one of the big reasons why copyright keeps getting extended is because Disney doesn't want to lose Mickey Mouse. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's an argument that's been going around for a long time. So Disney lobbies to increase the length that copyright takes to expire in order to keep Mickey Mouse being their their one of their main flagship products, which is, I don't know, weird. You'd think they'd still be able to include that as their main flagship, just under trademark or something. So there should be some other thing, because it's a logo more than anything else.
Yeah,
but who knows? But yeah, they made all their money off Cinderella, Snow White, all that kind of stuff, which anyone can do, but they made such a mark on those things that when people design a Snow White dress, it's based on the one from the movie. You know, the yellow sleeves and blue bodice and all that kind of stuff. It's all based on their version of it. So they made such a mark on it, which is really interesting. And when you think of when a whole generation of people think of Robin Hood, they think of the weird Disney. No, actually, even more than that, the Jungle Book. When people think of that, so many people think of the Disney version, you know, and they sing the songs from it and
sure,
all that. Yeah, that is so totally weird to me because I grew up with the book, of course, the original Rudyard Kipling. So I had no no weird associations with that. But yeah, so you can make such a mark on a copyright-free work that even though you have no control over the actual character, people will still always associate it with you anyway and look at your version. You know, Beauty and the Beast, that has become a Disney thing now, even though of course it's not. Little Mermaid, it is a Disney thing, and again, it's not. Even Alice in Wonderland, although I don't know whether Alice in Wonderland, I think that is probably copyright free because so many people have done a version of it.
I think it is. I think so.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So yeah, you can use any of those characters in your work to do your own thing with. You know, you can do. I think Neil Gaiman or someone did some comic called Lost Girls, and it was.
Yeah. Alan Moore, I think. I haven't read it, but
that's it. Yeah, so that's sort of like a slightly adult kind of thing. It gets a bit sexual, I think. And they include Red Riding Hood and Alice and
various fairy tale Jacks. I don't know which ones. If it's
which is interesting. You can do that kind of stuff and do different spins on it, and create.
It's kind of neat, and then you have the history of those characters, and you can do your version of these characters with all this history. I see the appeal,
with the benefit of character recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a built-in audience for it almost because they already know who Alice is, or fairy stories and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's a bloody good idea to do. Yeah, I can't think of any negatives. I mean, I already did think of a negative in that anyone else can do it. But if you do your own version that's really well done, they'll think of it as yours rather than theirs. So steal that Snow White from Disney. Make a better Cinderella. Yeah. Like,
So we were talking before... Go ahead.
I'll go on. I was going to say the Seven Dwarfs. The whole idea of name the Seven Dwarfs. Grumpy, Sleepy, Sneezy. No, you're wrong. The Seven Dwarfs don't have names. That's a Disney conceit.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They never had names. They're probably called Olaf and Sven and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Baines, go on with you.
Well, we were talking before we started recording about. I mean, I was kind of wondering if the XB route is the way things are going to go, rather than people using these even public domain characters and like. There's so much weirdness with brand ownership and stuff like that now, and a lot of people are dissatisfied with the way big brands are being handled.
Okay.
Whereas doing your own version of like say, a lot of people are upset with Star Trek. A lot of people are upset with Star Wars. But whereas with Star Trek, and Star Trek has its own fascinating kind of copyright thing going on where the new series can't, like, they're not allowed to use things from the TV shows. They're allowed to use elements from the movies, but things that are exclusive to the TV shows they can't use. So they have to be 25% different than the TV shows. But yet they're all at the top, they're all owned by the same company.
Yeah.
But the company was split. It's this weird thing. It's pretty fascinating, but it's very strange. So they're having trouble. Like, they're not able to use a lot of these elements that people want, especially if they're continuing the stories or doing the prequels to established characters, you know. Yeah. Like the shows feel different, they look different, and all that stuff. And then Star Wars has its own issues or whatever. Whereas, like, going back to Star Trek, the Orville, which is what I'm watching right now, that's why I bring it up, is Seth MacFarlane wanted to do a Star Trek show, and they said no. And so he went and did his own Star Trek show he wanted to do. So instead he went and did his own crew on a starship show. Yeah. It feels a lot like Next Generation or Voyager. It's got the same, it's got, captains and commanders and that whole military structure. It feels like kind of like Next Generation in a lot of ways, but it's not. He doesn't have the names. It's not the Federation. It's the whatever. It's not Starfleet. It's the Union or whatever.
Okay.
There's no Klingons. There's other things and stuff like that. So it's pretty neat, and it kind of works. So it made me. That kind of thing makes me wonder if that's the way to go. So like, these companies are sort of jealously holding on to these brands because they're valuable, and then they're making them less valuable with the crap they're putting out. But so doing your own version of whatever you love is not a bad way to go. Then you own it. If there's any money ever involved, you own it.
You can still make money off it, because you've made it different enough. It becomes a transformative work. I think that's the term.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's if you include a bit of the original, it's transformative. But or parody, or whatever. So that's a good way to go. Yeah, you change it. Well, that's how 50 Shades of Grey was a slightly different version of Twilight. She based it on there. She liked it so much.
Oh, is that so? I didn't know that.
Twilight was a transformative work of the Anne Rice books. So her vampire
and
stuff.
then you have the transformative with 50 Shades of Grey, which is basically fan fiction that was turned into an original. No. I'm talking 50 Shades of Grey as a book, and then movie.
It was turned into something else, was it?
Yeah, it was originally fan fiction of Twilight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they just changed the character names and the setting. And
there you go. Instead of doing Twilight.
Yeah.
I was going to do a series about giant robots called the Transformatives. Maybe I'll do that.
Love it.
Pitface's comment.
Well, I liked the GoBots. That was really
cool. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the GoBots. There you go.
But apparently they were the original. And Transformers was the copy.
Oh, they were first. Okay, I'm sad. Yeah, now that you mention it.
Know that. Well, Transformers was made out of a lot of different toy lines that were already existing, and they pilfered toys from all over the place and then changed them just enough to be in that series. So that was made out of weird copyright licensed stuff. There's stuff you don't know about there, because you just think, these are just cartoon toy things, and then they make toys and make money out of it. No, a lot of these were already existing toys that they made cartoon versions of to be in the animation, and then produced them. Like when I was little, I got this toy like this grey guy with one arm was a gun, and he had these little tiny horn things, and this head that was just like a hexagon with this little dingle thing in the middle. And I thought, oh wow, I've got the Shockwave from Transformers, but he's grey, so he must be a knockoff. He transforms into a ray gun just like that one on TV, but it's grey. It must be like a cheap Chinese knockoff. And I found out many years later that he's actually was the original toy made in Japan for something else, and the Transformers version was a knockoff, and they just coloured it purple. That's all they did to stick it in their cartoon. And that was actually done with a lot of things. So yeah, copyright takes some weird paths. Unfortunately, it has to, because one of the things we haven't mentioned for copyright protects your original creation, and it protects people making money off of your original creation. So just to take it home to you, if you create a comic and you worked really hard on it, created your own storyline, you made your own character designs, everything, and then someone else just goes and uses that in their comic or a movie or whatever, that's all your work taken away from you. And they're suddenly making millions of dollars and you can't make any money of it because that's theirs now. So copyright protects you against that. It's meant to anyway. Of course it doesn't really in that a massive studio's got all the money to afford the lawyers and you haven't. So...
If that did happen, there are stories about songs being stolen by big artists from non-recording artists, It's like someone just comes and rips off their stuff. And
exactly.
They don't have the resources to fight that.
It, But theoretically you can. I mean, people have done that. I think in the latest, like you were saying, the latest Star Trek effort, Star Trek Discovery, I think it is. They ripped off wholesale a storyline that someone had produced,
right.
Space traveling tardigrade or whatever. This guy's been working on a game with these things in for 2 years, and they copied everything. So, and of course he can't afford to sue them, like whatever company that is. The guy can't afford to sue a massive media company for stealing his work, so he crowdfunded it, and apparently that's working out for him. So theoretically you can sue, and actually you can, but it's a lot of work, so you got to be prepared to put in the work.
That's fascinating, man. Like it also makes me think of some of our friends who do photo comics with toys and stuff. Like I wonder if some of these new, this new legislation or whatever is going to hurt them or get in their way, or if they'll still be able to do their thing. They're doing original stuff, but they're using these toys. They're using figures,
posable figures,
posable figures or Playmobil. Yeah.
Bravo with.
I wonder.
Figurines.
Yeah, like if they do sell a little bit or try to make a few bucks or whatever, even just a little bit. Hopefully they'll be able to. I think they should be allowed to. It seems like silly to not allow.
One guy, Kevin Gould, I think his name's Kevin J. Gould. I can't remember what his nickname is, but he produced a comic called Space with Lego figurines. They got massively popular, hugely popular. But that has Lego figurines, which are copyrighted and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And, maybe Lego doesn't want their work seen in a way that tarnishes their image.
Yeah, they want all the money. They want to be able to sell it to make all these various Lego Avengers and Lego Batman and all that jazz.
Well, they pay for those rights. So if you're going to do your fan comic with the Lego's Avengers characters, then you're going to run into rights problems.
Well, if you did Avengers, that's different. Those are trademarked characters.
Yeah,
but just to use your standard Lego in your own story.
True, but say if you have an Avengers figure, one who's designed to be the Hulk, and you call him something else like Bob. but
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
still the Hulk. Do you run into trouble with Marvel Comics,
Right.
or whoever's got the rights to that character? So yeah, copyright is all in everything. There's issues, even if you're not doing that.
And Sprite Comics, like you mentioned at the beginning,
Oh, yeah.
Sprite Comics, like they generally don't make any money, I'm guessing, but maybe somehow they do.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have issues like that as soon as a dollar comes in, like you have people coming after you.
They haven't
Like, hey.
yet. They're really it's tricky with Sprite Comics. Yeah, it's tricky. Like theoretically, that whole Sprite comic thing is just built on sand because it's totally built on using copyright work.
Yeah.
But no one has come after.
So if there
that.
is money, if there's enough money to be had, I'm sure like there will be people coming in demanding.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but mainly it's all kids working on it, so you can't get money out of them, even if you could sue. So yeah,
Could shut them down though, which would suck.
Well, this has been a very interesting topic on all the ins and outs of copyright stuff in work, and we've only barely scratched the surface. This is just huge, this topic. But
yes, of course we're not lawyers. We're not copyright law experts, which should be obvious from listening to this episode.
We're experts in bird law. Everyone gets that. All right. Thank you very much for being part of QUACKCAST. My people, my crew, my posse. Thank you. My gang. Bye-bye. Bye, mute face.
Bye.
Bye.